The animals they were riding on would not move. Amar li, the Arab said, Dilma shakalt midei minayu. Did you take something from these people? That's what he says. Ahadre, you better return it. Degmire, because we know. Man deshakal midei minayu. Whoever takes anything from them, lo mistagila, you can't leave. Azlei adritu. Okay, and then so I put it back. V'hadar mistag, and then we could leave. All right, so that's a great story. And now we know that people, at least in the Torah times, were buried with tzitzit. Although I think you could say we're not clear about this proof necessarily, because I think we have, I don't know if we have to, but it's probable that we might have to interpret this as an allegorical story in some fashion. There's some elements there. So, but anyway, that's what Tosa says. It seems that they were wearing tzitzit too. So he says, what is the deal? Why don't we do it anyway? And he says, I'll tell you why. Because Abba Shaul in Masechet Smachot said not to do it. And he says, and here's a great line that Tosa says, Mihu, however, Taima Shal Abba Shaul lo nidbara. However, it never was clarified what is the reason of Abba Shaul. So it's a bit of a mystery right now why he said not to do it. Okay, let's now try to solve this mystery. So we will go now to Machzor Vitri. Machzor Vitri is a very exciting book written by Rav Simcha of Vitri, who was a student of Rashi. And it basically goes through everything. It goes through everything in davening and the Jewish life cycle. There's also thrown in there a commentary on Pirkei Avot. All sorts of great stuff is here. And here when they talk about getting ready and how to prepare dead people in Siman Resh Ayin Chet, they say like this. Eat duchta, there are places, denahage, that it's the custom, l'salek hatzitziot mitalit hametim. Some people remove tzitzit. And you know why? Here we say, Mishum dichtiv, because we are told in Tehillim, b'meitim chofshim, that dead people are chofshi. In other words, it says, Kevan shemet adam nasa chofshim min hamitzvot. Once people are dead, they are free from mitzvot. So we don't bury them with the tzitzit because they're not obligated in mitzvot, so why put tzitzit on them? Which is very strange to say, again, because the Gemara just told you to do it, even though Abba Shaul said not to, but now we're going to try to sort that out. He says, Vani shamati, now Machzor Vitri says, but I heard that Rav Eliyahu, from the Bali Tosfot, lo hiniach l'salko, he wouldn't let them take off his tzitzis. V'tzivala banav, and he told his children, lo yasalku metalito, do not remove my tzitzis. And he says, and he says, V'gama Rav Yedidya amar li ken, Rav Yedidya also told me this, V'rayatam, and their proof is from Menachot. And he says, V'im yishum darmina Masechet Smachot, and if you're going to give me a proof from Masechet Smachot that you're not supposed to put on tzitzit because of Abba Shaul, he says, no, that's different. Everyone misunderstood that whole story. Hata mishum de'ein nachon shoto tzitzit shayaba b'chayav. Says what he meant was, don't cover me with the talis that I wore my whole life. That the one that was chayiv in mitzvahs, like the real one. He says that I don't want to wear when I am patur from mitzvot. V'tziva lenatzlo, and he said, remove that talit from me when I am dead. And he says, ulasum bo'acher, but put a different talit on me. So, Machzor Vitri says you definitively have to be buried in a talis. But when Rabbi Shaul says to take it off, what he meant was switch me out from my real talis to a dead person talis, or something like that. He says, and that has nothing to do with removing. There is no such thing. And he says, furthermore, he says, and if you're going to say that dead people don't have mitzvahs because they are free, he says there's an exception to that. There's one mitzvah that dead people have to do. You know what that is?
Be buried in Israel?
No.
Stay dead.
Wear tzitzit. You don't have to stay dead. Didn't you ever see all those zombie movies? They come back. Yeah. It says like this. He says, if you want to say Bekulei Talmuda, and it says all over in the Gemara when you're dead, you're chofshi from mitzvot, that's levad mitzitzit, except tzitzit. Why? Lefi sheshkula keneged kol mitzvot. Since tzitzit is counts like all the mitzvahs, And since Tzitzit Begimatria is Tafresh Yud Gimel, 613, which is one of the reasons Tosfot said not to wear Tzitzit, he flips it around and he says, no, that's why you have to wear the Tzitzit. And he says, I'll furthermore tell you that we found that he says that Harav Yehuda ben Avram Gaon, he found in a book that it says, why is the story of the Mekoshesh Eitzim right next to Parashat Tzitzit in the Torah? Lomar Lacha, because what do they do to the Mekoshesh? They killed him. To teach you that a met is chayiv b'tzitzis. Therefore, vada en l'salakat tzitzit mitalit haniftar. You cannot take off a guy's tzitzis. Ki edotohi lifnei baro. This is in fact edus before Hashem. Shekiyem mitzvah tzitzit. That he fulfilled mitzvah of tzitzis that is so important, like kol mitzvah kol Torah kula. Very nice. And he says that that's the idea. So he's very pro. All right. Now, what's interesting is that, by the way, this whole thing about the Mekoshesh Tzitzit thing being next to each other, that everybody says that they found in a book, but that's one of these like famous lost midrashim. We don't have any midrash. We don't have the original source of this. We only have it written in various places that, I saw in a book this midrash, which happens once in a while to midrashim. They sort of, fall in between the cracks, which is, something that happens.
It also connects to the Dora Midbar.
Yeah.
Because the Meraglim.
Oh, yeah, there you go, right.
And that's the cause of everybody dying.
Right, and there you have, very nice. Now.
Jeez, what are women doing? Can they get everything?
What are women doing? I think they are enabling their husbands towards it.
Well, when they're dead, I mean.
When they're dead.
You're offering men like an eternal mitzvah.
They don't need it.
Well, we'll see about this eternal
we
mitzvah
we can always pull that one out of the hat.
They don't need it.
Because you are part of the birthing process
That's
like
right.
God,
Because
you are closer.
You are so close
you
to
don't need
Hashem
it.
automatically. You're automatically close to Hashem. Now, all right, so far we haven't found anyone who gave a good reason to take off these scissors. So we found a lot of people that were pro. All right, so let's see. Now the Rosh in Moed Katan. Now Moed Katan is another classic place to read about Avelus. There's a lot of Avelus in there. And here the Rosh writes about this whole topic, and it's pretty long, and we'll just get through the highlights. First of all, the Rosh says, listen, he says, look, Tosfot says that it's not okay nowadays to put it on people because some people were wearing it in their lifetime and some people not, and therefore if you only bury the tzitzis people, it will embarrass the non-tzitzis people and all of that. And the Rosh says, well, ma bekach, who cares? Lichsifu v'lichsifu, let them be embarrassed. I don't care. Mishum shezilzulu b'mitzvah. If they made fun of tzitzis and they didn't put on tzitzis their whole life, b'chayayim, then they should be embarrassed. I'm totally fine with them being embarrassed. So therefore, that's one kind of thing. Although he says that maybe you could say maybe it's not right to embarrass them because it's not really like an obligation to wear tzitzit. We're just like obligating ourselves when we're four-corner garment. So now he wants to say, all right, so now he's going to try to give other reasons. So here's a very interesting reason. He says it has to do with a huge philosophical question. And this is the very big philosophical question. He says like this. The Gemara in Menachot says that you're supposed to bury a person with tzitzit. That's aliba de Shmuel. That is based on Shmuel's approach. Shmuel's approach regarding what? Shmuel says, he says in the Gemara Shabbos, mitzvot einan betelot latid lavo. That mitzvot will always exist in all of the future and even after Tchiyat HaMeitim, when the world will obviously undergo some sort of a radical change because the dead people have come to life and all of reality, will in some fashion shift, still the mitzvot will be intact and we will still have mitzvahs. Therefore, if you bury people without tzitzis, then what happens? Tzaddikim, they're now coming up. This is even according to the opinion that not everybody comes back in Tchiyat HaMeitim. Maybe it's just the tzaddikim who come back. But these people, yebelot tzitzit, v'yeloeg larash. That's the loeg larash, that they're walking around without tzitzit, and then you have these 3-year-olds, walking around with tzitzit. So how's that going to be?
What does that mean? The neshama will be walking around with tzitzit?
No, their physical body that in Tchiyat HaMeitim.
You come back as you were what? The moment you died?
Oh, that's a whole other shiur. That's a whole other shiur.
You get
Okay, one day maybe you'll do
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
In my
No,
20s,
no.
I was really.
Yeah, you come back at your prime. Anyway, it says, he says, so this is the La'agloraj Gormin Lo La'amod B'lo Tzitzit Latid Lavo, that you're going to cause a guy to have no tzitzis when he comes back from the dead. And he says, wait a second, so now let's understand why we take off tzitzis.